Picture this. There's a kid walking down a dusty street, and honestly, you'd probably look right past him. His shoes have holes so big you can see his toes, his backpack's held together with hope and duct tape, and his stomach's making more noise than a construction site. But here's what you can't see, and this is where things get interesting. Behind those tired eyes burns something that poverty can't touch. While other kids his age are dreaming about video games or candy, Alex is carrying a vision so massive it would make grown adults laugh. You know that feeling when you meet someone and there's just something different about them? That's what we're talking about here, except nobody else sees it yet. Now, you might think I'm being dramatic, but I've seen this pattern countless times. The biggest dreams often come wrapped in the most unlikely packages, and Alex's story proves that wisdom doesn't always wear expensive clothes. His family doesn't have much, heck, they don't have anything, but somehow this kid's got more belief in his future than most millionaires have in their bank accounts. It's like watching someone carry a treasure chest while everyone assumes it's just an old box. The courage it takes to nurture a dream when your reality screams, impossible, every single day? That's the kind of discipline that transforms lives, though most people never get to witness the transformation because they're too busy judging the beginning. What fascinates me about stories like Alex's is how they challenge everything we think we know about success and where it comes from. Society teaches us that you need the right family, the right connections, the right starting point, but sometimes the most powerful ingredient is simply refusing to let your circumstances define your ceiling. This kid's walking around with holes in his shoes, but his hope is bulletproof, and that's the kind of paradox that changes everything. You see, while everyone's focusing on what he doesn't have, something much more valuable is brewing inside him. And trust me, when that internal fire finally gets its chance to burn bright, the whole neighborhood's about to see what real transformation looks like. You know what's funny about big dreams? They've got this magical ability to turn everyone around you into comedy critics. The moment Alex started sharing his vision, and I'm talking about a kid who could barely afford lunch talking about building something extraordinary, the laughter started. His neighbors would shake their heads with that "oh bless his heart" look, his classmates would snicker behind his back, and even some family members would give him those patronizing smiles that basically scream, "Dream smaller, kid." It's like the universe has this cruel sense of humor where the bigger your vision, the louder the chorus of doubt becomes. But here's what most people don't realize: that laughter? It's not really about Alex's dream, it's about their own fear of hoping too big. The thing about poverty is that it doesn't just empty your pockets, it tries to shrink your imagination too. When you're surrounded by people who've accepted limitation as a lifestyle, suddenly your courage to dream differently feels like rebellion. Alex would walk through his neighborhood and see adults who'd given up, teenagers who'd already decided their fate, and a whole community that treated big dreams like fairy tales. The wisdom he was developing, this unshakable belief that circumstances are temporary but potential is permanent, was completely foreign to everyone around him. It's like trying to explain color to someone who's only seen black and white. The sacrifice of standing alone with your vision while everyone else settles for realistic expectations? That takes a special kind of discipline. But here's where the story gets really interesting, and this is something I've observed in every major transformation I've witnessed. The same people who laugh at your dreams in the beginning are often the ones who'll later claim they always believed in you. Alex was learning one of life's most valuable lessons without even knowing it. External validation is nice, but internal conviction is everything. While his community was busy explaining why his dreams were impossible, something powerful was happening inside him. The constant resistance wasn't breaking his spirit, it was actually strengthening his resolve, like a muscle that grows stronger under pressure. And sometimes, when you're surrounded by enough people telling you, no, you start to realize that maybe you're onto something they're just too afraid to see. That's when something incredible happened. Alex met someone who would change everything. Picture an old man, weathered by years but with eyes that sparkled with the kind of wisdom you can't learn in books. Everyone called him Samuel, and he had this peculiar habit of seeing potential where others saw problems. One afternoon, when Alex was sitting alone after another round of mockery from his peers, this elderly gentleman approached him with a knowing smile. "You know what your problem is, son?" he said, pulling out a small dusty mirror from his pocket. "You're letting other people's dirt cloud your reflection." At first, Alex thought the old man was just being weird, but what came next would transform his entire understanding of success and self-belief. Samuel held up that mirror and started explaining something that most people spend their whole lives trying to figure out. "This mirror represents who you really are," he said, pointing to the reflection. "But look closely, see all this dust and grime covering the surface? That's every doubt, every criticism, every "you can't do it" that people have thrown at you." Then he did something magical. He started wiping the mirror clean, and suddenly Alex could see himself clearly again. The courage it took for Alex to really understand this lesson was immense, because it meant accepting that the poverty, the laughter, the limitations everyone kept talking about, they were just dust on his true identity. The discipline required to keep wiping that mirror clean every single day, especially when the world keeps throwing more dirt at it, that's where real transformation begins. But here's the part that gave me chills when I first heard this story, and it's something that applies to every single person watching this. Samuel explained that behind every person's reflection burns an invisible fire: your dreams, your vision, your unshakable belief in what's possible. "The world will try to suffocate that fire with doubt," he told Alex, "but here's the secret: that flame burns from the inside out. External circumstances can't touch it unless you let them." This wasn't just some feel-good philosophy. This was practical wisdom that Alex could use immediately. The old man taught him that every time someone laughed at his dreams, every time poverty tried to convince him he was stuck, he could simply clean his mirror and reconnect with that inner fire. And you know what's beautiful about this metaphor? It works for everyone, whether you're dealing with family pressure, financial struggles, or just that voice in your head saying you're not good enough. Armed with Samuel's wisdom, Alex did something that most people talk about but never actually do. He turned his pain into fuel. While his classmates were sleeping in, he was up at 4 a.m. helping at the local tea shop, learning the basics of business by watching how customers behaved and what made them come back. After school, you'd find him at the neighborhood mechanic's garage, getting his hands dirty and earning a few dollars while absorbing lessons about problem solving and persistence. The sacrifice was real. No hanging out with friends, no lazy weekends, no excuses when his body screamed for rest. But here's what's incredible. Instead of feeling sorry for himself, Alex started seeing each challenge as a step toward his dream. That kind of discipline doesn't just happen overnight. It's built one difficult decision at a time, and every choice was bringing him closer to the transformation he'd envisioned. The evolution didn't happen like in the movies. There was no montage with uplifting music. Instead, it was messy, slow, and filled with moments when Alex questioned everything. His mother fell seriously ill, and suddenly the family's financial situation went from bad to desperate. His father, already worn down by years of struggle, started working double shifts just to afford her medicine. But instead of giving up, Alex made a decision that showed the true depth of his courage. He took the little money he'd saved and started his first tiny business, selling homemade snacks to his classmates. It wasn't glamorous, and the profits were barely enough to help with groceries, but something magical was happening. Each small sale taught him about customer service, each rejection strengthened his resilience, and each success proved that his vision wasn't just a fantasy, it was a blueprint. What happened next is the part of the story that gives me goosebumps every single time. From that small snack business, Alex slowly expanded, first to a tiny corner store, then to a proper shop, and eventually to something nobody in his neighborhood could have imagined. But here's the thing that most people miss about success stories like this. It wasn't just about the money or the recognition. The real transformation was happening inside Alex. He was developing the kind of wisdom that comes from turning obstacles into opportunities, the hope that survives even when everything seems impossible, and the unshakable belief that your current situation is just a starting point, not your final destination. His family went from struggling to pay for medicine to having security they'd never dreamed possible. But the greatest victory was watching Alex become living proof that Samuel's mirror metaphor wasn't just pretty words, it was a roadmap to a completely different life. Years later, on a day that felt like any other, Alex was standing in front of his thriving business when he spotted a familiar figure across the street. There was Samuel, older now but with that same knowing smile, watching everything unfold with the satisfaction of someone who'd planted a seed and watched it grow into something magnificent. When their eyes met, the old man simply nodded, no words needed. It was one of those moments that gives you chills because you realize you're witnessing the completion of something much bigger than just a business success story. This was about a transformation so profound that it had rippled through an entire family, changed a community's perception of what's possible, and proven that wisdom combined with relentless discipline can literally rewrite your life's trajectory. But here's what Samuel said when he finally walked over, and this is the part that'll stick with you long after this story ends. You know what I'm most proud of, Alex? It's not the money in your bank account or the success everyone can see. It's that you never let the world convince you to think smaller. The courage it had taken to keep that inner fire burning through all those years of doubt, sacrifice, and seemingly impossible challenges had created something more valuable than wealth. It had created proof that dreams aren't measured by your starting point but by your willingness to keep moving toward them. Alex's vision had transformed from a poor kid's fantasy into a reality that was now inspiring other young people in his neighborhood to clean their own mirrors and discover what was possible. Standing there, watching Samuel disappear back into the crowd just as mysteriously as he'd first appeared, Alex understood something that most successful people take decades to figure out. The real victory wasn't escaping poverty. It was discovering that his circumstances had never defined his potential in the first place. The hope he'd carried as a kid with holes in his shoes had become the foundation of something much larger. A legacy that showed his community, his family, and anyone paying attention that the size of your dreams has nothing to do with the size of your wallet. And as he looked at his reflection in the window of his business, Alex could see that mirror was finally crystal clear. No dust, no doubt, just the image of someone who'd refused to let the world dim his inner fire. But you know what's interesting about stories like this? They never really end, they just inspire new beginnings for people brave enough to start cleaning their own mirrors. Now, if Alex's story stirred something inside you, if it made you think about your own dusty mirror or that dream you've been carrying quietly in your heart, then you've got a choice to make right here, right now. This isn't just entertainment. This is a wake-up call wrapped in a story, and the question is, what are you gonna do with it? See, every time you share a story like this, you're not just hitting a button, you're potentially changing someone's life. Maybe it's your cousin who's been talking themselves out of starting that business, or your friend who thinks their background disqualifies them from success, or hell, maybe it's that stranger scrolling through their feed at 2 a.m. wondering if their dreams are just foolish fantasies. The wisdom in Alex's journey becomes exponentially more powerful when it reaches the people who need to hear it most. Here's something I've learned after years of studying transformation stories. The people who take action, who actually subscribe and share content that moves them, they're the same people who take action in real life. It's not a coincidence, it's a pattern. When you engage with inspiration instead of just consuming it passively, you're training your brain to be someone who responds to opportunity rather than someone who just observes it. The discipline to hit that notification bell might seem small, but it's actually practice for the bigger disciplines that create real change. You're joining a community of people who believe that circumstances are temporary, that potential is limitless, and that every success story started with someone who refused to accept impossible as an answer. But here's the most important part, and I want you to really hear this. Your story could be next. Right now, somewhere out there, there's a young person just like Alex. Maybe it's even you, who needs to see that transformation is possible, that poverty doesn't define potential, and that the biggest dreams often come from the most unlikely places. When you subscribe and stay connected to this journey of wisdom and courage, you're not just learning about success, you're becoming part of a movement that proves hope is contagious and belief is transferable. Your next chapter, the one where you stop letting other people's limitations become your ceiling, that chapter starts the moment you decide you're ready to clean your own mirror and let that inner fire burn bright. So what's it gonna be? So here's the million-dollar question that's probably burning in your mind right now. What's the dust covering your mirror? What voices, what limitations, what realistic expectations have you been carrying around that are keeping you from seeing who you really are and what you're truly capable of? Because here's the thing, Alex's story isn't special because he was gifted or lucky. It's powerful because he represents what's possible when someone refuses to let their circumstances write their story. The same fire that burned inside him, that same potential for transformation, that same ability to turn sacrifice into success. It's already inside you, waiting for you to stop making excuses and start making moves. But let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. How long are you going to keep letting other people's small thinking limit your big dreams? How many more years are you going to waste believing that where you come from determines where you can go? Alex didn't have a trust fund, he didn't have connections, he didn't even have decent shoes, but he had something more valuable than all of that combined: the courage to bet on himself when nobody else would. The discipline to work when others were sleeping, the wisdom to see opportunity in every obstacle, and the unshakable belief that his current chapter wasn't his final story. So what's stopping you from developing that same mindset right now? Here's what I want you to do, not tomorrow, not next week, but right now while this story is still fresh in your mind and that fire is still burning in your chest. First, identify one area of your life where you've been thinking too small, where you've been letting circumstances convince you that realistic is better than remarkable. Then, make one decision today that proves you're serious about cleaning your own mirror and betting on your own potential. And if this story hit you the way I think it did, if it reminded you that transformation is possible and dreams aren't just for other people, then do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because this is just the beginning of our journey together. Every week, we're diving deep into stories, strategies, and wisdom that'll help you rewrite your own story and become the person you've always known you could be. Your transformation starts now. So what's your next move going to be?